What if I told you that the very thing that tried to break you is the key to your breakthrough? What if the pain you've been running from is actually the fire that will forge the strongest version of you? Today's message isn't just about survival, it's about transformation. It's about learning to take your scars, your setbacks, your silent battles, and turning them into unstoppable strength, because real strength isn't built in the spotlight. It's forged in the shadows, when no one is watching, when you're flat on the ground, when quitting whispers louder than hope. But the truth is, pain is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your rise. So if you've ever felt like your struggle was pointless, if you've ever looked at your past and wondered why it hurt so much, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll see that your pain has a purpose, and it's bigger than you think. This is the moment you stop running. This is the moment you rise. Let's rebuild. Let's reframe. Let's transform. Pain is not punishment. It's a signal for transformation. So many people go through life thinking that when pain shows up, it's evidence that they've failed, that they're broken, or that something has gone wrong. But the truth is, pain is often the first sign that growth is possible. It's the crack in the routine, the interruption to our comfort, the jolt that wakes us up to something deeper that's calling for change. Pain doesn't arrive to break you, it arrives to build you. It is the internal alarm clock that shouts, "It's time to evolve." It's the nudge from the universe or from your own soul that something needs to shift. Something is no longer serving you. Something is waiting to be born from the ashes of what you once knew. Transformation never begins with celebration. It always begins with discomfort. When the body aches, we check in. When the heart aches, we reflect. And in that reflection lies the invitation to transformation. Pain is not chaos. It is divine order trying to be restored. When you resist pain, you prolong suffering. But when you face it with curiosity, courage, and grace, you discover that pain is actually a messenger, and its message is almost always about growth. The discomfort in your career, your relationships, or yourself. Worth is often the soil where purpose begins to take root. It's not the absence of pain that makes someone strong. It's the way they choose to walk through it. If you see pain as the enemy, you'll hide, numb, or react in fear. But if you see pain as a teacher, you'll listen, adapt, and rise with new wisdom. That shift in perspective changes everything. Some of the strongest, wisest, and most compassionate people you'll ever meet have one thing in common. They've suffered deeply and chosen to grow anyway. They didn't ask for the pain, but they didn't waste it either. They let it mold them, mature them, and motivate them to live more intentionally. Pain stripped them of illusions and introduced them to their real power. It burned away what wasn't essential, so what remained was unshakable. When pain is seen not as punishment, but as a sacred process, you realize that every hardship is carving out a deeper capacity within you, capacity for resilience, for empathy, for courage, and for leadership. Resilience is not something you're born with. It's something you build, one challenge at a time. It's forged in the fire of adversity, when everything in you wants to quit, but something greater in you whispers, "Keep going." Resilience is not the denial of pain, but the decision to stand in it without letting it define you. It's the ability to bend without breaking, to be pressed without being crushed, to be shaken but not destroyed. And the truth is, every person who has ever inspired you, every leader you admire, every strong soul you've met, they've all had to build resilience, not by avoiding their struggles, but by standing up to them. By meeting them with grit, grace, and a deep refusal to give up on their potential. Pain invites us to develop a deeper relationship with ourselves. It's in the quiet moments of disappointment, failure, and heartbreak that we discover who we really are. When the applause stops and the crowd is gone, what remains is our ability to rise again, not because it's easy, but because we've learned to trust the process. Resilience is choosing to rebuild after being broken. It's the mindset that says, even if I have to start from the ground up, I won't stay down. You don't find your strength in comfort. You find it in resistance. Every setback becomes the gym that trains your willpower, the furnace that tempers your faith, the storm that proves the depth of your roots. And every time you rise, you teach yourself that you are stronger than your circumstance. To transform pain into power, you must first learn to sit with the discomfort rather than escape it. In a world obsessed with comfort, the idea of embracing pain sounds counterintuitive, but pain is not the enemy, avoidance is. Pain is a signal, a teacher, a revealer. It points you to the parts of yourself that are still healing, still growing, still becoming. When you choose not to run from it but to listen to it, you unlock a new dimension of inner strength. The strongest people aren't those who have never suffered. They're those who allowed their suffering to refine, not define them. Growth does not occur in comfort zones. It happens in the fire, in the resistance, in the stretching of your soul past what you thought was your limit. It's easy to try and drown pain with distractions, scrolling, working, numbing, but every time we bypass it, we miss the opportunity it brings. Pain invites you to ask deeper questions. Why does this hurt? What does it reveal about me? What needs to change, not just around me, but within me? When those questions are met with honesty and courage, the transformation begins. You realize that the power was never outside of you, but always within. Pain simply cleared the path, burned away the illusions, and forced you to confront what you truly believe about yourself. The secret to this power is not in suppressing emotion, but in giving it space to breathe without letting it lead. You acknowledge the fear, the anger, the grief, but you don't let them become your identity. You use them as fuel. You let the broken pieces become bricks. You stop waiting for someone else to fix what they didn't break. You become the architect of your own healing. This is not about perfection. It's about rising from the ashes with purpose. It's about standing in the mirror and saying, yes, it hurt, but I am still here, and I'm building something stronger than before. That's the moment pain becomes power. When you choose to forgive, especially in the face of deep pain, you aren't saying what happened to you was acceptable. You're saying it will no longer control your life. Forgiveness is not about them. It's about you. It's the decision to release yourself from the prison of bitterness and regain your personal freedom. The truth is, holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person gets sick. It slowly eats away at your peace, your joy, and your ability to move forward. People who hurt you may never acknowledge their actions. They may never apologize. But forgiveness doesn't require their permission. It is an internal shift, a soul-level decision that says, I will not let what was done to me continue to define who I am. Many people fear that if they forgive, they are letting the other person off the hook. But the opposite is true. Forgiveness places accountability in a higher place. It acknowledges the pain, but it refuses to let that pain become permanent. It allows you to take back your power, not by getting even, but by getting free. That freedom becomes a turning point in your story. It is where healing begins, not when someone else makes it right, but when you choose to rise above the wrong, and in that rising, you discover the strength and courage that pain tried to bury. There's no exact timing or formula for forgiveness. It's often not a one-time event, but a daily decision to release, again and again, until the wound becomes wisdom, until the scar becomes strength. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is the highest form of power. It says you are no longer tethered to the past. You are walking forward, unburdened, unchained, and untouchable by the things that once tried to break you. When you forgive, You declare that your destiny is more important than your history. You step into a new level of maturity where your emotions serve your purpose, not sabotage it. True power is found in using your pain as a foundation, not a fortress. Too many people build walls from their wounds, thinking they are protecting themselves, when in reality they're imprisoning their growth. But those who transform pain into purpose understand something deeper. Pain is a tool, not a sentence. It's a teacher, not a curse. Every scar you carry holds a story, not just of what hurt you, but of how you survived. And when you stop hiding your pain and start owning it, you don't just heal, you become a source of healing for others. The strongest people are not the ones who have avoided pain, but those who have walked through it, learned from it, and emerged with wisdom instead of bitterness. Harnessing pain into purpose doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It means acknowledging it did, and still choosing to rise. It means you refuse to let the past dictate your future. It means you look your suffering in the face and declare you will not win. That's how legacies are built. That's how movements are born. That's how leaders are made. Not by avoiding the fire, but by learning how to walk through it without letting it consume them. When you turn pain into purpose, you become unstoppable. Because nothing the world throws at you can match the fire that already forged you, you begin to carry your story differently, not with shame or fear, but with confidence and clarity. You become a light in dark places, not because life was easy, but because you refused to let it break you. You inspire others not with your perfection, but with your perseverance. Your resilience becomes your message, and suddenly your most painful chapters become the very fuel that ignites your calling. That's what makes someone powerful, not their comfort, but their courage to grow through what they never asked for. You don't just survive, you lead, you build, you rise, and you help others do the same. That's the real transformation, when pain becomes the spark and purpose becomes the flame. This kind of inner strength doesn't come from theory, it comes from testing, from being disappointed but not disillusioned, from being hurt but still hopeful, from crying and still choosing to stand up and try again. Resilience is the discipline of standing tall, even when the world expects you to crumble. It's not about perfection. It's about showing up, bruised, bleeding, unsure, but showing up anyway, because deep down you know that what you're building is not just a future. You're building the kind of person who can carry that future with honor, humility, and unshakable confidence. Pain is not your enemy, it's not your curse, it's your invitation, an invitation to grow deeper, rise higher, and become stronger than you ever imagined. The most resilient people you admire didn't escape pain. They embraced it, learned from it, and turned it into purpose. Transformation doesn't begin when everything is perfect. It begins the moment you stop asking asterisk, why me, asterisk, and start saying asterisk, watch me, asterisk. Your pain has the power to shape you, but only if you decide it won't define you. Every time you rise, every time you choose progress over pity, you are writing a new chapter in your life, a chapter that speaks of strength, healing, and victory. The strongest version of you doesn't wait for the storm to pass, it becomes the storm. You don't need to avoid the fire, you were made to walk through it, and on the other side, a version of you that's not just alive, but awakened, aligned, and unstoppable. Thank you for walking with me through this journey of transformation. If this message stirred something inside you, if it reminded you of the power you've always had, don't keep it to yourself. Share this with someone who needs a reminder of their strength. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful content like this. And always remember, your pain doesn't define your limit. It reveals your potential. Let's keep growing together. Fire, see you in the next video.